70% of the time, people in their waking lives, they live in a very protective state. They live in a state of stress or in a state of survival. In fact, it's such a program that we don't know that we're doing this. We're always spanning the environment to determine if it's safe or not. And if something appears out of the predictable or unknown, it alerts us. And we move into a state of arousal, and we begin to turn on the very systems that begin to say danger, threat, possible scenario that's not safe. And when that happens, we literally begin to anticipate an outcome. And when we do that, we're always preparing for what could go wrong. And we begin to create the emotions ahead of the experience of what happens if it goes wrong, whether it's fear, anxiety, worry, sadness, pain. We do that unconsciously. That's what a program is. And that becomes the habit. So if you're living in a world where men have to provide and show a certain amount of success and be competitive, then you're not going to open your heart. It's not a time to do that. It's a time to survive and thrive in an environment. And yet, in our work, I see men that if they practice opening their hearts, and it's just being a child again, being a boy again, being curious, being wondering, being free, allowing yourself to let go. And for men, we have to lay down the very thing we used our whole life to get what we want, for something greater to occur. Now, the side effect of that, when men truly do this, I've seen them instantaneously heal from things, from serious heart conditions where they couldn't take more than 40 steps without having an angina reaction, severe chest pain, to stage 4 cancer. The house of cards, when it falls, energy moves into a different place, and the body begins to release 13 or 1400 different chemicals that begin to restore and repair the body. So to the intellectual mind, if a man begins to understand that when they open their heart, they could heal. When they open their heart, they can lead from a different consciousness, that it's actually an advantage, and they understand the science of why in their rational mind, then they go after it. Now they're in hot pursuit of it because it makes sense to them. But there's not a lot of evidence or support in our environment for men to be vulnerable. And yet the latest research shows that vulnerability is one of the 5 top qualities for a great leader. So when men begin to think this through, they start to slowly by slowly, just like a flower blooming, petal by petal, they start trusting a little bit more. They start opening up a little bit more. They start getting happier. They start breaking down the wall, the facade that they've created to have an appearance of being a certain way for the world, and yet feeling so empty inside of them. They start realizing that the joy that they want never came from success, never came from wealth or popularity or whatever men do, but it really comes from within. So we give them numerous opportunities to practice, numerous opportunities to connect. And the heart opens also when you care for another person, when you care for other people, when you give, when you experience gratitude. So a lot of times men, when we do our healings, when we heal other people, you got to be in your heart. And in a very indirect and sneaky way, I know that when I get men in that state and their passion to truly give, that's why they provide with such intensity, is framed in a different way, the heart opens up, and then they become more like a child again. They become free and relaxed and less rigid. So it requires the balance between our head and our hearts. We can't not have our brains involved and just open our hearts. We got to direct that energy. That's what our brain does. It's a compass. It directs us somewhere, and the emotion is the energy that drives us there. So when you have coherence in the brain, coherence in the heart, now you have greater effects on the nature of reality. The people come for all kinds of reasons. To me, I don't care. What I care about is that they latch on to a vision and they learn how to create. Whatever drives them to that elegant moment where they're so present and so passionate about what they want, and they have a clear intention, a clear vision, a coherent brain, and they have an elevated emotion combined with it, that they create heart coherence. And now they're broadcasting a whole new energy into the field. And whatever we broadcast into the field is our experiment with destiny. So I want people to know the how, because we have plenty of people that have made millions and millions of dollars that were living in the backseat of their car or filed bankruptcy. We have plenty of people that were stage 4 cancer, serious health conditions that are healed. But really, people think they come for those reasons, but we come for wholeness. That's why we come. That when we feel so whole and so happy with ourselves, so connected to something greater, if you feel wholeness, it's impossible for you to want. How can you want when you're whole? When you're whole, you feel like you have everything. So I want people to reach that point where they feel so whole that they no longer want, and that's when the magic happens. Teaching them that allows them to understand that when they come back to their senses, they open their eyes. They're not looking for the experience. They feel like it's already happened. And if you feel like it's already happened, why would you be looking for it? Then, if your body is conditioned emotionally into that future, you're not separate from the energy of your future. You're connected to it. But the moment you get in traffic and you start getting angry, you get on the line at the bank and you start getting impatient, or you're sitting in a staff meeting and you start judging a coworker, you just disconnected from the energy of the future, and now you're back to the energy of your past, and you've done nothing wrong. You just lost your connection to the future. Now, the importance of that is to notice that you're disconnected. And if you say to me, well, that person made me feel this way and think this way, I'd say, oh my gosh, you're back to the unconscious program of being a victim in your life. The victim is saying that someone or something is controlling how I think and feel. But a person who's producing outcomes in their life, all of a sudden they say, wow, the way I'm thinking and feeling is creating outcomes in my life. Now I'm a creator in my life, and now I believe less that I'm a victim in my life. Point one. Point number two is that people think that they want certain things because they're experiencing lack. And so they have to go about becoming the very person. So then if we reframe it and you say, oh, I really want to be wealthy, I want all my needs met, and I'll say, really, why do you want to be wealthy? And they'll say, because I want freedom. I'd say, okay, well, let's focus on freedom. So now the person understands the sponsoring thought or the emotion. Why would you wait for your wealth to feel free? That's the Newtonian model of reality, of cause and effect. Waiting for someone or something out there to take away this emptiness or lack. And what if I'm feeling this emotion is influencing certain thoughts, and how I think and feel creates my life. If I'm living in lack, I'm not going to create anything new. But if I say to you, hey, when you become that person, once you become it, then your reality is going to reorganize itself. Instead of living by cause and effect, let's teach you how to cause and effect. So then the person then is no longer interested in getting something in their environment when they realize it's about who they become. And all of a sudden now the emphasis or the interest is in becoming that person. And we have a week with those people, and I want them to walk as it, sit as it, stand as it, lay down as it. I want them to get in the habit of walking from their room to the ballroom. It's become the new habit. So point number two is that becoming that person requires you to stop being the old person. That's the work. And so when people come with a passion and enthusiasm to overcome that old self, they're gonna understand then that people who live in the past are asleep in the present, and they have to die. That old person has to die. And the dying of that old personality is an uncomfortable process. But if you apply the formula, when you're in that uncomfortable process, you will literally begin to become somebody else. So when they start becoming that person, they'll say, I thought I wanted wealth, but I really don't want wealth, I want this. And all of a sudden, here come the synchronicities, the opportunities, the serendipities, the coincidences, the wonderful, wonderful events start unfolding in their life. And they're going to say to you, I'm not doing anything. Because they took care of the past personality, because your personality creates your personal reality. Your personality is made of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So then if they're no longer thinking the same way, no longer acting the same way, no longer feeling the same way, they're thinking differently, they're acting differently, they're feeling differently, and they will return back into their lives, they're able to maintain that modified state of mind and body. That's the new habit. They're embodying that energy. So we think we want all those things, but really what we want to do is really contribute. So I think when we have a purpose that's bigger than us, it's the highest form of motivation, mission motivation, duty motivation, purpose motivation. When we have a selfless vision that's bigger than us, I think we're wired to be that the living organism called the species of human beings, it is a living organism. In this current era, the age of selfish individuality has to die. That we are a species, and the species of a living organism takes care of one another. They heal one another. They educate one another. They teach one another. They inspire one another. They give to one another. They serve one another. That's what a living organism does. They cooperate, communicate, collaborate with one another. That's what it does. And so we are wired to be communal. We are wired to create common unity, community. And that community is built on the frequency of love. And when you come from love, you come from a different consciousness. It's no longer about you. You feel so amazing. You feel this feeling that isn't going away. That the only thing you want to do is have other people feel what you're feeling. And the only way we do that is to give. We say, I feel so amazing. I want you to feel the way I feel, so I don't need this. Here, take that. That kind of community goes counter to the current situation in the world where everything's breaking down. But this is a time where we have to demonstrate what that new community looks like. So when you have connection, when you have community, when you have true friendship, the person's really just giving because there's something unusual about them and you're worthy enough to receive. And you feel that feeling of receiving that you want to give to somebody else. You create a very different consciousness. You create a common unity or a community that's bonded and connected in the frequency of love. And then when love is the common frequency, it's very difficult to break that community up because it's the glue that holds them together. So that's my vision of where I'd like to go with this work.